What just happened on Smackdown last night is honestly one of the most disrespectful, shocking, and downright infuriating things I have ever witnessed in my entire time covering professional wrestling. I need everyone watching this video right now to prepare themselves because what I'm about to break down for you is going to make your blood boil. It's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about sportsmanship and respect in WWE, and it's absolutely going to have you running to the comments section to share your thoughts. We're talking about a moment that should have been the absolute pinnacle of Carmelo Hayes' career, a moment that should have been celebrated and protected, a moment that should have been sacred. Instead, it turned into something that I'm still trying to process hours later. Carmelo Hayes won the United States Championship last night on SmackDown. Let that statement sit with you for a second because that should be the entire story. That should be what we're celebrating right now. Carmelo Hayes, one of the most talented performers in all of WWE, a man who has been grinding and working his way up the card for months, finally captured his first main roster singles championship. The United States Championship, a title that has been held by legends, that has meant something significant in WWE history, was around Carmelo Hayes' waist. This was supposed to be his moment. This was supposed to be the beginning of his reign as a champion, the start of a new chapter in his career where he proves beyond any doubt that he belongs at the top of the card. But instead of getting to celebrate, instead of getting to have that moment in the sun that every champion deserves, Carmelo Hayes got absolutely obliterated by Johnny Gargano. I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened because the sequence of events is crucial to understanding just how wrong this entire situation was. Carmelo had just finished his match, and it was an incredible performance by the way, showing exactly why he deserved this championship opportunity in the first place. The final bell rang, the referee handed him the United States Championship, and you could see the emotion on Carmelo's face. This wasn't just another win for him. This was validation. This was proof that all the hard work, all the sacrifice, all the belief in himself was justified. He held the title up and the crowd was reacting. There was this moment of pure triumph happening right there in the ring, and that's when everything went completely sideways. Johnny Gargano's music hit. Now under normal circumstances, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Maybe he was coming out to congratulate Carmelo, to show some respect, to have a face-to-face moment that would set up a future program between the new champion and a veteran star. That's what I thought was happening at first. That's what made sense given the situation. But the second Johnny Gargano walked out onto that stage, the look on his face told a completely different story. This wasn't congratulations. This wasn't respect. This was something else entirely, and what came next was absolutely brutal to witness. Johnny Gargano didn't even let Carmelo have 5 minutes with his championship. He stormed down to the ring with a purpose, with an intensity that honestly took me by surprise because Johnny Wrestling, the man who's built his reputation on being a good guy, on being respectful, on representing the best of what professional wrestling should be, suddenly looked like the most dangerous person in the entire building. Carmelo was still in the ring, still holding his newly won championship, probably still processing the fact that he just achieved one of his biggest career goals, and he didn't see it coming. Johnny Gargano slid into that ring and just started attacking him with a viciousness that I didn't even know he had in him. The super kick came out of nowhere and it caught Carmelo flush on the jaw. You could hear the impact even over the crowd noise, and Carmelo dropped like he'd been shot. The United States Championship fell from his hands and clattered to the mat, which somehow made the whole thing even worse because that visual of the championship just lying there while its new holder was being destroyed felt almost symbolic of how this moment was being desecrated. But Johnny Gargano wasn't done. Not even close. He started stomping on Carmelo, targeting the ribs, the back, the legs, just methodically breaking him down with strikes and stomps that seemed designed to cause maximum damage. Carmelo tried to fight back, tried to defend himself, but he'd just gone through a grueling championship match. He was exhausted, he was still celebrating emotionally, and he was completely unprepared for this assault. Johnny Gargano took full advantage of that vulnerability and it was honestly difficult to watch. This wasn't a competitive fight. This wasn't two equals going at it. This was a veteran deliberately attacking someone when they were at their most vulnerable, and doing so with a level of aggression that seemed way over the line for what should have been happening in that moment. The really disturbing part was how calculated it all seemed. Johnny Gargano wasn't just wildly swinging in anger. Every move he hit was precise, deliberate, targeted to specific body parts that would cause maximum pain. He hit Carmelo with a DDT on the championship itself, which is just adding insult to injury in the most literal way possible. He threw Carmelo into the ring post, he hit him with knee strikes, he was using every weapon in his arsenal to absolutely demolish this man who had just won his first championship literally minutes earlier. The referees tried to pull Johnny off multiple times and he kept going back for more, kept finding ways to inflict additional punishment. What makes this so infuriating beyond just the physical attack is the timing and the implications of it all. Carmelo Hayes finally gets his moment of glory, finally achieves something he's been working toward for his entire career, and Johnny Gargano decides that's the perfect time to make it all about himself. Because that's what this was really about, right? Johnny couldn't stand to let Carmelo have that spotlight. He couldn't stand to see a young star rising and getting attention and achieving success, so he had to insert himself into the situation in the most destructive way possible. That's not the action of a hero or a good guy. That's the action of someone who's jealous, bitter, and willing to destroy someone else's moment to get attention for himself. The look on Carmelo's face when he was finally able to pull himself up after the attack was absolutely heartbreaking. You could see the confusion, the pain, the devastation of having what should have been the best night of his career turned into a nightmare. He was holding his ribs, barely able to stand, and officials were trying to help him to the back while Johnny Gargano stood at the top of the ramp looking satisfied with what he'd done. That image is going to stick with me for a long time because it perfectly encapsulates everything that's wrong with this situation. Let's talk about what this means for Carmelo Hayes moving forward because the implications are significant and mostly negative. He won the United States Championship, which should mean he's being positioned as a top star, as someone WWE has faith in and wants to build around. But his championship reign immediately starts under this cloud of violence and disrespect. His first night as champion ends with him being carried to the back by officials while his attacker stands tall. That's not how you build a strong champion. That's not how you establish someone as a credible title holder. That's how you make them look weak and vulnerable right from the start. The question everyone needs to be asking is, what was Johnny Gargano thinking? What was his motivation for doing this? If this is going to lead to a championship feud between them, fine. But there were 1,000 better ways to start that feud than by obliterating the new champion on the night he wins the title. You could have had Johnny come out the next week and issue a challenge. You could have had him interrupt a celebration segment. You could have built tension gradually over time. But instead, we got this instant, violent assault that makes Johnny look like a jealous psychopath rather than a legitimate challenger. Some people are going to argue that this was necessary to establish Johnny Gargano as a serious threat, to show that he means business, to make people take him seriously as a main event player. But here's the problem with that logic: Johnny Gargano is already established. He's already proven himself countless times over years of incredible matches and compelling storylines. He doesn't need to cheapshot a new champion to get credibility. If anything, this makes him look worse because it makes him look like he can't win a straight-up fight, so he has to attack people when they're vulnerable. The booking decision to have this happen raises serious questions about how WWE views Carmelo Hayes and his championship reign. If they truly believed in him as champion, if they truly wanted to elevate him and make him look like a star, they would have protected his winning moment. They would have let him celebrate, let him have that night, and then started building challengers the following week. The fact that they allowed this attack to happen, that they had Carmelo's first moments as champion be defined by him getting destroyed by someone else, suggests that maybe they don't actually have as much faith in him as we thought they did. And that's concerning for anyone who wants to see Carmelo succeed. Let me address something that I know is going to come up in the comments because I can already anticipate the arguments. Some people are going to say that this is just wrestling, that attacks happen all the time, that this is normal and I'm overreacting. But there's a difference between a normal attack and what happened last night. Normal attacks happen during matches or in segments designed to build feuds. What happened to Carmelo was different because it happened immediately after his championship win, in what should have been a protected moment. That timing matters. That context matters. And the level of violence, the extent of the beating he took, that matters too. Johnny Gargano has built his career on being the ultimate babyface, the good guy who works hard and respects the business and does things the right way. This attack completely contradicts that character unless we're supposed to believe he's turned heel, which hasn't been clearly established or explained. If this is a heel turn, then fine, it's a hell of a way to turn someone heel and it certainly got people's attention. But if Johnny is supposed to still be a good guy after this, if we're supposed to still root for him and see him as heroic, then that's a massive disconnect between his actions and how we're supposed to perceive him. The United States Championship itself is being devalued by how this was handled. Championship wins should feel important, should feel like major accomplishments that change the trajectory of someone's career. When you immediately undercut that accomplishment by having the new champion get obliterated by someone else, you're telling the audience that the championship doesn't actually mean that much, that winning it isn't actually that significant. That's damaging not just to Carmelo but to every future challenger for that title and every future champion who holds it. Carmelo Hayes deserves better than this. He's worked incredibly hard to get to this position, he's delivered great matches consistently, he's shown charisma and star quality in everything he does. To have his championship win be overshadowed and tainted by this attack is a disservice to him and to everyone who's been supporting him and wanting to see him succeed. This should have been his night. This should have been about him and his achievement. Instead, it became about Johnny Gargano and his apparently overwhelming need to be the center of attention. The crowd reaction during all of this was really interesting and telling. You could hear people being genuinely shocked by what was happening, but there was also this confusion about who they should be reacting to and how. Are we supposed to boo Johnny for this unprovoked attack? Are we supposed to cheer him because he's Johnny Gargano and people like him? The uncertainty in the crowd reaction reflects the uncertainty in the storytelling and the booking. When the audience doesn't know how they're supposed to feel about something, that's usually a sign that the creative execution has problems. Looking ahead to what happens next, this situation creates several potential paths, but all of them are complicated by how this started. If Carmelo gets revenge on Jonny and beats him in their eventual match, great, but he's still going to be remembered as the champion who got destroyed on his first night. If Jonny beats Carmelo for the championship, then what was even the point of Carmelo winning it in the first place? He would have been champion for however long this feud lasts and then lost it to the guy who attacked him immediately after he won it. Neither of those outcomes is particularly satisfying given how this all began. The physicality of the attack was genuinely concerning from a storyline perspective and maybe even from a real safety perspective depending on how stiff some of those shots were. Johnny Gargano was not holding back, and while I'm sure Carmelo is professional enough to protect himself as much as possible, some of those moves looked like they legitimately hurt. The DDT on the championship, the repeated knee strikes, the way Carmelo's head bounced off the ring post, all of it looked brutal. If you're trying to tell a story about Johnny being vicious and out of control, mission accomplished I guess, but at what cost to Carmelo's well-being and his image as champion? There's also the question of where the other babyfaces were during all of this. When a heel faction attacks someone, you often see other good guys run out to make the save, to even the odds, to show that they won't stand by while someone gets destroyed unjustly. But nobody came to help Carmelo. Nobody ran out to pull Johnny off him or to check on him after the attack. That absence makes Carmelo look even more isolated and vulnerable, which again is not how you want to present your new champion. Champions should look strong, protected, important. Carmelo looked like someone nobody cared enough about to help. The commentary team's reaction to this attack was also worth noting because they seemed genuinely surprised and troubled by what was happening. They weren't trying to justify it or explain it away as reasonable. They were calling it out as wrong, as an unprovoked assault on a new champion. That's the right call from a storytelling perspective because it helps clarify for the audience that this isn't supposed to be seen as normal or acceptable. But it also raises the question of if this is so clearly wrong, why isn't there more immediate consequence for Johnny? Why is he allowed to just walk away after doing this? Carmelo Hayes' championship reign was supposed to represent a new era for the United States Championship, a chance to elevate the title with fresh matchups and a new face carrying it. Instead, his reign starts with him being a victim, being someone who needs to recover and get revenge rather than someone who's confident and dominant as champion. That's backwards from how championship reigns should typically be established. You want your new champion looking strong and having the upper hand, not immediately being put on the defensive. The social media reaction to this has been absolutely explosive and divided. You have people defending Johnny saying he's establishing himself as a serious threat and that this is just good heel work. You have people defending Carmelo saying he deserved to have his moment and this was disrespectful and poorly booked. You have people who don't care about either guy just commenting on how shocking and brutal the attack was. But what you don't have is unanimity about whether this was the right creative decision, and when you have something this controversial happening with a championship, that's usually not a good sign. I want to be clear that I'm not questioning anyone's work ethic or professionalism here. I'm sure Carmelo Hayes did exactly what he was told to do and took that beating like a professional because that's what the script called for. I'm sure Johnny Gargano was executing the creative plan that was given to him. The problem isn't with the performers, it's with the decision to book this situation this way in the first place. Someone decided that Carmelo's championship win should immediately be followed by him getting obliterated, and that person made a bad decision that's going to have ripple effects for however long this storyline continues. The United States Championship has been through various periods of importance and irrelevance throughout its history in WWE. Sometimes it's treated as a major title that main event stars compete for. Other times it's treated as an afterthought that exists just to give midcard guys something to do. Having the championship change hands and then immediately having the new champion get destroyed sends a message about where the title currently sits in the hierarchy, and that message isn't positive. If WWE wanted to elevate the US Championship and make it feel important again, this isn't how you do it. What's frustrating is that there was so much potential for Carmelo Hayes' championship win to be the start of something special. He could have had a reign where he takes on all comers, has great matches with different opponents, establishes himself as one of the top stars on Smackdown. Instead, his entire reign is now going to be defined by this feud with Johnny Gargano that started with him being brutalized. Maybe they'll turn it into compelling television, maybe the eventual payoff will be worth it, but right now it just feels like a waste of what should have been a much bigger deal. The attack itself lasting as long as it did without more immediate intervention is also worth questioning. Referees were out there trying to stop it, but they seemed ineffective and unable to actually control the situation. Where was security? Where was management? Where was anyone with the authority to actually stop this from continuing? The longer the attack went on, the worse Carmelo looked because he couldn't defend himself and nobody could or would help him. That extended beating accomplishes nothing positive for his character. Johnny Gargano's motivation for this attack better be explained really well in the coming weeks because right now it doesn't make sense. He wasn't the previous champion who lost the title and is angry about it. He wasn't involved in the championship match at all. He apparently just decided that Carmelo winning the title was offensive enough to warrant this level of violence, which makes Jonny look unhinged and petty rather than like someone with a legitimate grievance. If this is building to a story about jealousy or about Jonny feeling like he deserves the championship more than Carmelo, that could work, but it needs to be explicitly laid out because it's not obvious right now. The whole situation just feels unnecessarily cruel to Carmelo Hayes. This was supposed to be one of the best nights of his career, a night he'd remember forever as the night he became champion. Instead, it's going to be remembered as the night he won the championship and then immediately got beaten down so badly he could barely stand. That's not a memory anyone would want associated with winning a championship. That's not how you create positive momentum for a new champion. And it's not how you make the audience excited about what comes next for the championship or the champion. I keep coming back to the fact that this didn't have to happen this way. There were so many other options available for starting a feud between Carmelo and Jonny if that's what they wanted to do. They could have built it gradually, they could have had some back and forth exchanges on the mic, they could have had Jonny win a #1 contenders match to earn his shot at the title. Any of those approaches would have been better than what we actually got, which was a new champion being made to look weak and vulnerable literally minutes after winning his first title. So where does this leave us? Carmelo Hayes is the United States champion, which should be a cause for celebration, but his championship reign has been poisoned right from the start by this attack. Johnny Gargano has positioned himself as Carmelo's obvious next challenger, but he's done so in a way that makes him look like a bully rather than a legitimate contender. The United States Championship itself has been devalued by having its new holder immediately destroyed, and the audience is left confused about who they're supposed to support and whether this was supposed to be compelling television or just shock value for its own sake. I need all of you to tell me in the comments right now what you thought of this situation. Was Johnny Gargano justified in attacking Carmelo Hayes? Was this good booking that's going to lead to a great feud? Or was this a terrible decision that undermined Carmelo's championship win and made everyone involved look worse? I genuinely want to know what you all think because I'm still processing this myself. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video because this is a conversation the entire wrestling community needs to be having. What happened to Carmelo Hayes last night on Smackdown was shocking, controversial, and potentially damaging to everyone involved, and we need to hold WWE accountable for their creative decisions, especially when those decisions directly impact the championship picture and the careers of talented performers like Carmelo Hayes.